Monday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Just how hot is it in Portland right now? Hot enough to cook an egg on the sidewalk? I wasn't even sure that was a real thing until now. And hot enough for the governor to let us pump our own gas. It's even hotter in Portland right now than it's ever been in cities like Dallas or Los Angeles or Nashville or San Antonio. And speaking of hot messes, let's talk about what's going on with the Blazers. Let's see, we've got a new coach with rape allegations against him, a lot of fans who aren't happy about that, and the team's star player apparently thinking about heading elsewhere because of it all. Here's the story. Hello, Dan Haggerty here. Welcome to the story. Figured we should do this one outside. I want to be in the elements. Wow, it's hotter than I thought it would be. That air conditioning in there is pretty good. Yeah, I'm in the shade. You want to get the full flavor of this, you got to step out here in the sun. You really got to feel. Yeah, nope. Shade. Back to the shade. So here's the deal. All the ways to communicate with us at the bottom of your screen. Coat was a poor choice. I don't know what I was thinking with the coat. Doesn't make any sense. All the ways to communicate with us at the bottom of your screen. Use that hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. What's the rest? What do I usually say out here? Email us at thestory@kgw.com. I remember now. This was a bad idea. Audible. I'm going back in. What in the world? Why? Why is it this hot? Well, honestly, I mean, dangerous heat, terrible, so uncomfortable. It's better in here. It's okay in here. You know what? During my little stint outside, my few minutes, I just started thinking, thank you to anybody who has to work outside today and is doing their job. Our paramedics, our police officers, our construction workers, firefighters, farm workers, park rangers, tow truck drivers, zookeepers, dock workers. Thank you to the volunteers, the people out there, the advocates working outside with our homeless population. Who am I forgetting? Probably a ton of people. Maybe you. Who worked outside today that deserves a thank you? Let me know. Send me their picture. I'll give them a shout out because they deserve it. I've never felt heat like this. 3 years in Texas, 3 years in Southwest Florida. I have never, ever felt this. This is dangerous, out of breath, lightheaded kind of heat. So please, check on your neighbors. Young people, hydrate. Knock back some water bottles, okay? And go knock on some doors, all right? Just to say hi. Make sure people are okay. Make sure they have air conditioning or some way to get to a cooling center. I promise you, if you find someone who needs help and you help them, it will stay with you for the rest of your life, and it could truly save theirs. And it reminds me of the work being done by the Blanchet House. This week's Hey Help campaign, we're asking you to please consider donating to the Blanchet House. They help people living on the streets of Portland. Can you imagine what that is like right now? In this heat wave, it is more important than ever that this type of work is being done. They're handing out cold water to people and their pets. You know, a lot of people aren't out there by themselves. Think about their dogs that are out there with them. They're giving them reusable water bottles and ice so they can continue to stay cool and hydrated. They're giving meals to the volunteers, so many of them at the city's cooling centers, helping those to continue to run. So please, if you feel inspired to help, to donate, open the camera on your phone, point it at the QR code on your screen, or you can go to kgw.com/heyhelp. All right, we're going to get back to the heat in just a minute, but right now I want to start with a blazing hot controversy. I know that segue was a little forced, but here we are. Now, if you're not a Blazers fan, or perhaps you just tuned out of the news over the weekend, let me give you a quick recap. See, last night the Blazers officially announced Chauncey Billups as their new head coach. I mean, this guy's a famous player. He played 17 years in the NBA, was an assistant coach for the Los Angeles Clippers. He was also accused of raping a woman in 1997, and the resurfaced allegation has a lot of fans upset. Very upset, especially when you consider the Blazers picked Billups over Becky Hammon, who would have been the first woman to ever be a head coach in the NBA. Now, a lot of fans on Twitter are going specifically after Damian Lillard, because earlier this month he said he would like Billups as the coach. Now he's saying he wasn't aware of the rape allegations and he doesn't, quote, support those things. But because of this backlash that he's been getting from fans, Yahoo Sports is reporting now that Dame might be looking to leave the team and leave the city of Portland. That and the fact that the Blazers can't seem to win a title for him.
So let's bring in Devin Haskins, reporter working on the story for us today. Devin, Dame said he wasn't aware of these allegations against Billups, and frankly, neither was I. I didn't really know this happened until the recent news cycle started to pick it up. So what can you tell us about the allegations from '97?
Well, Billups was accused by an unidentified woman of rape, and he denied those allegations. It was when he was a rookie in Boston, and he and another NBA player were accused of rape. He says, reports say that he denies those allegations and says any sexual contact in between he and the woman were consensual. Now, it's important to note that no charges were ever filed against Billups, and a few years later, he and the woman did settle out of court on this case. So
let's fast forward to today. Of course, he went and had a long, successful career in the NBA as a player, and then in the coaching realm, and now here he is with this job. Fans, though, are maybe they knew about this, or maybe they're learning about it for the first time, and a lot of them are not reacting well at all.
Yeah, you get the fans that say, "Hey, welcome to the Trailblazers organization. Glad to have you here." But you search through the Twitter post that's saying we hired Chauncey Billups, and there is a huge reaction of fans that do not like it, saying you lost me for life. I was a fan from the beginning, and I will never come back as long as Chauncey Billups is coach. So you get both sides of it. But it seems there is a lot of fans that do not like this hire and will not support this hire.
Now, I can't imagine the Blazers weren't prepared in some way for this. They vet these candidates, every which way. They would of course know that this might happen. What have they said? Have we heard? It appears that they're moving forward with the hire, but have we heard from the team at all?
Yeah, from what we've heard, they did their own investigation into Chauncey Billups' past, and they're moving forward with it. And from what we understand, they're, and it's out there, they're doing a public news conference tomorrow at noon to announce the hiring of their newest head coach.
Got it. All right, I guess we'll wait to see what they have to say then. Devin, thanks for the report.
Now to the big story, the big heat up. That's all anybody's talking about. And if you haven't been keeping track, we have been breaking records we have been absolutely shattering records all over the place. Portland broke its all-time record 3 days in a row. We've reached 115 degrees this afternoon, which is, I can't even believe I'm saying that sentence. I mean, before Saturday, the old record in Portland was 107. Chief Meteorologist Matt Safino, we've been talking about this. First of all, what does it mean to you that we shatter a record like this, and we do it in June? Okay.
It's nuts. I mean, on several different levels. I mean, consider that Phoenix, their all-time record high is 122. Suddenly, Portland's all-time record high is only 7 degrees shy of Phoenix's. That's fairly remarkable in a big, big way. But to answer your question, our historic and unprecedented heat wave means this to do it so early in June. By the way, 115 today, as Dan mentioned, 117 in Salem. First of all, just in terms of the event itself, it's harder to cool off when you have these heat waves around the solstice. This is the time of the year when we have our shortest nights of the year. So there's simply more daylight hour to keep things cooking. It's harder to recover and get any overnight relief. That's in the short term. But it also, in terms of the big picture, Dan, it points to how unusual this event is to get a heat wave like this in June, when typically our hottest time of the year is late July, early August, and that's typically when we get our hottest and longest heat waves.
Now look, whenever we see these kind of anomalies spike up, and we've seen a few in the past year or so, we have a major wind event at a strange time of year, or we have a big ice storm that lands over the region, and now this huge influx of heat. People say, hey, climate change, definitely climate change. And we always argue that it's difficult to look at a singular event and make that determination. But in this case, I mean, we have day after day after day of 90 and then 100 and record-breaking temperature. What are we to make of that when it comes to climate change?
Yeah, a couple of points to be made there. First of all, I'm always very hesitant to do, and you're talking about what we call attribution science. That is attributing any event to climate change or anything else for that matter. So I'm always very hesitant to attribute a singular event to climate change because the atmosphere is very complex. There's still a lot of natural variation going on in the atmosphere. However, when it comes to heat, it's really hard to separate it. Now, here's a graphic from the folks at Climate Central that make the point about heat. And the point is this: small changes in the averages, which we've seen, can lead to big changes in the extremes because you're moving the bell curve into the warmer section. So what used to happen in a very, very rare amount of time suddenly is happening more frequently because you're closer to the middle of that curve. As the average shifts, you're going to have these extremes more frequently. This is exactly what the climate models have been predicting for many, many years, and exactly what climate scientists expect to have happen. So there will be attribution studies done on this event to see how much of it is attributable to climate change. But when we're talking about extreme heat like this, it's pretty hard to not make the connection between this and a warmer climate and a warmer atmosphere that we're living in right now, Dan.
As you talk about what you can and cannot predict, I was talking to a friend this weekend and they just groaned and said, well, you know, what does this mean for the rest of the summer? I can just imagine it's going to be in the 90s from now through fall. What do we know about this and how it relates to the months to come?
Yeah, that's human nature to have that reaction like, oh my God, it's this hot in June, it's going to stay this hot forever. And that's simply not the case, because keep in mind, this was, as I said, an unprecedented, historic, and extremely rare event. By definition, that makes it a rare event. Rare events don't come along all that frequently, although in a changing climate, we do expect to have more extremes. However, it's still rare. So I don't expect this to be the norm for the summer going forward. And in fact, the map I'm showing here shows cooler air coming our way next week. We might even get a little bit of rain. So no, this is not a precursor and an indication that the rest of our summer we're going to be baking in the 90s and triple digits for the next 3 months. I don't expect that to be the case. It would be highly unusual to have this event repeat itself sometime this summer. This was such a historic and unusual and extreme event, Dan. We were talking about freezing levels near the all-time record high in the top 5. That's an indication as to how warm this hot air mass, or the so-called heat dome, is. And so to have this develop in the exact same location in the same way, to have it do it again sometime in the next few months, the odds of that happening are really low.
I could keep talking to you about this all night, but we got to move on. For anybody else, Matt is going to be back at 6:30 for the latest on all of this heat. Matt, thanks for the updates tonight. Now, for those of you living in cities or living in residential areas, I'm guessing your main concern right now is keeping your home cool any way that you can. But for people living on farms, rural areas, they've got some other things to worry about on top of their own personal comfort, like keeping their crops alive. Kristen Severance visited a farm on Sauvie Island to see how they're holding up in this heat.
And as you know, the forecast just kept on getting worse and worse. I'm waiting for them to announce it's going to be like 130.
Topaz Farm on Sauvie Island would normally be buzzing on the last weekend in June. Instead, it's quiet, empty, and very hot.
This time of year, right? This is normally about as good as it gets. I mean, summer hasn't really even started, so it was pretty alarming.
Owner Jim Topaz closed the farm stand, U-Pick areas, bar and grill, and store early, and canceled private events like planned parties featuring the farm's goats, mini donkeys, and mini cow.
I am quite worried, especially our cow Rita.
Odessa Topaz, who takes care of the animals,
Excuse his horrible haircut. The clippers gave out halfway through on him.
said it was just way too hot to have these parties safely.
That's really sad to me because I love being able to share that with people, especially some kid's birthday if they were excited. Luckily we can reschedule them, but it's quite disappointing.
And a paella-themed farm-to-table dinner for 100 people was also canceled.
All those things combined, I think it could be, in terms of the gross sales loss, I think it could end up being a $50,000 loss due to this 10-day period.
Other farms on the island are impacted by the heat too. Sauvie Island Farms is always closed on Sunday, but it's closing Monday because of the heat. Topaz worries about the heat damaging all of their crops.
But talking to other farmers, it sounds like this level of intense heat, we could lose all the berries. It's possible that they, are literally all, just when we were getting into, we just finished with strawberry season, we're getting into blackberry, boysenberry, marionberry, raspberry, and this intense heat for this long, it's not it doesn't look good.
But all of these farm owners know it could be worse. They lived it last summer. Topaz and other farms had to shut down because of all the intense smoke from last summer's historic mega wildfires. They hope this stretch of hot weather is not a sign of things to come.
We bounced back and had a fantastic October, and I hope this isn't like a summer full of 100+ degree days, but assuming this is just a blip.
I'm Kristen Severance, KGW News.
Look, just because Mike Nearman got kicked out of the legislature for letting protesters into the Capitol doesn't mean he can't come back. In fact, he's on the short list for candidates to fill his old seat. Confused? You should be. And on this anniversary of the Stonewall riots, let's take a look back into the KGW vault at the struggle for gay rights here in Oregon.
I can be dismissed from my job in this state without any legal recourse. I can be thrown out of my building, my home, without any recourse in this state.
When the story continues.
A little bit of Mother Nature's cuisine there. Mother Nature's oven. If you're doing any cooking on the sidewalk in this heat, send me your photos. People have been today with surprisingly edible looking things made outside with just the heat from the sun. It's crazy, but I'd like to see your attempts. Send them to the story at kgw.com. Meantime, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which, despite being massive, has proven to be quite comfortable in the heat, and this story is no exception, because on Friday night at a church in Dallas, Oregon, about 60 Republicans made a pretty hot take. They nominated Mike Nearman to replace Mike Nearman in a move so unprecedented that it actually justifies using the term unprecedented, which is something news people just really love to overuse nowadays. You see, here's what happened. The party got together on Friday at that church to nominate 5 people to fill the seat left vacant when Mike Nearman became the first legislator in Oregon history to be expelled. Nearman got kicked out of office for what you see in this video, when he let angry right-wing protesters into a locked Capitol where they fought with state police. Later, there was more video from prior to that showing what appeared to be Nearman planning the whole thing in what he called Operation Hall Pass. Now, keep in mind, by the end of the day, the end of this video, that day, dozens of protesters caused thousands of dollars in damage to our state capitol and injured a half dozen police officers. Every lawmaker not named Mike Nearman on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, voted to expel him because he wouldn't resign. A 59-1 vote. He's also fighting the criminal charges against him and hasn't accepted any type of plea deal, saying he wants to go the long road. He wants to go with the trial instead, while also simultaneously asking the public to pay his legal bills on a website he launched called freemikenearman.com, which ignores the fact that he is currently free. He's not in jail, so that doesn't make sense. Now, look, I wasn't at this vote on Friday, but I did talk to two Republicans who were. I spoke to them separately and got the same story from both. And here's what they told me. 10 people, including Nearman, ran for consideration. They each had 3 minutes to speak, then answered 4 questions from the crowd, the same 4 questions. The last question to all of them was, would you have expelled Mike Nearman? And nearly all of them said yes, except for Nearman, of course, and 1 or 2 others. Then the PCPs took a vote. That is the precinct committee person, which are people who the party insiders elect in each district to make these types of choices. And Nearman was on the top of their list, the top choice, actually. Both of my sources said the crowd cheered when his name was announced. Now, this isn't the final step. He doesn't have his job back. Nearman's name and the 4 other names will go to the commissioners of the counties that his district touches, so Polk, Yamhill, Marion, and Benton, and those commissioners will make the final vote. But not every vote counts the same way. Population size matters here, and that makes Polk County commissioners the most powerful, which happens to be Nearman's home county, where he's a 4-term lawmaker and vice chair of the Polk County Republicans. I certainly have some thoughts on all of this, but I do want to hear yours first, especially Republicans. So please reach out to me at email, thestory@kgw.com. Also use that hashtag #HeyDan on Twitter. Now, today is the 52nd anniversary of the start of the Stonewall riots, which, if you didn't know, launched the first pride protests in the LGBT community. On June 28, 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in New York City, but people inside fought back, which turned into 5 days of protests and riots. The first pride marches happened the next year on the anniversary of the riots. They've continued every year since, including right here in Portland. We looked into the KGW vault and found a story on the Pride Parade in 1991, when the people in the LGBT community still lacked a lot of basic rights.
Clean and sober, gay and proud.
This is a yearly trek for Kathy Siemens.
It's the most exciting day of the year besides my birthday.
Siemens is a realtor. She's also a lesbian, and she knows some folks won't do business with her because of it.
Okay, thanks very much. Bye-bye.
This rally is the one time Siemens and thousands of other gays feel comfortable being themselves in public.
It's actually a celebration of identity. I am much more than just what I do in the bedroom, as you are, as any heterosexual person is. It's about how I live and who I love and what my relationships are like and how the world treats me.
And the world, according to this crowd, isn't very friendly to gays and lesbians. Doug and Ken have discovered that.
More than we expected. We thought. Yeah. It's really good to see Portland's turnout.
I didn't know they closed Broadway. It would be hard to tell if we were just walking down the street. We don't normally hold hands or be kissing or hugging on each other. So we're pretty careful about that because we're aware that bashing does take place.
Ken and Doug have been partners 6 years. They've lived together in 3 states. And they're surprised by how backward Oregon is.
makes me very angry. I can be dismissed from my job in this state without any legal recourse. I can be thrown out of my building, my home, without any recourse in this state. And that just doesn't seem fair to me.
Ken, Doug, and Kathy aren't asking people to condone their sexual orientation. They're just seeking acceptance as human beings who follow a different path. Ann Jagger, News 8.
All right, let's count some vaccines, shall we? According to the CDC, 2.46 million Oregonians have gotten at least their first dose of a vaccine. That works out to be 69.4% of the state's adult population. The governor says the state will reopen on Wednesday or earlier if we hit that 70% before then, but we still need about 19,000 people to get vaccinated in order to hit that. In Washington, the state is reporting 4.19 million people with at least their first dose. That's 68.2% of the state's 16 and older population, which is the metric that Washington is using. Washington will also open Wednesday regardless, unless they hit that 70% mark before them. All right, I got this email from Steven. Hey, Dan, when and how will I find out if I won the $1 million Oregon vaccine lottery? I hope you win, man. I do. Just in time. Here's the deal. They actually did the drawing today for the $1 million grand prize, as well as the $10,000 prizes for each county. The thing is, they're not actually announcing the winners until sometime next week. The state doesn't have an exact date for that yet, but when we find out, we'll let you know. Part of that is because they will contact the winners ahead of time to see if they actually want the money. I mean, I hope you probably want it, and the publicity that comes along with it. So it's twofold. If they or you turn the money down, they'll just go ahead and pick another name. They also want to make sure that the people who win were actually eligible. People who work for the Oregon Lottery, the governor's office, the treasurer's office, the Oregon Health Authority, and those workers' families are not eligible to win the cash. So if you're a winner, you will get a call sometime in the next week from the Oregon Health Authority. The call will come from a 503 or a 971 area code. The caller will ask about your vaccination status, but they will not ask about your financial information. I know we're telling you all kinds of things that scammers are taking notes right now and going, okay, ask these questions. Make sure if you get that call, you hang up and you call back. Okay, that's the easiest way. Get online, look up the OHA number, call them back, make sure you're a winner. Don't get scammed, okay? Meanwhile, I'd like you to keep sending in questions and comments. Use the hashtag HeyDan. I'm going to read a few when we finish this thing up right after this. couple people saying, hey, you know who's working out in the heat today and deserves a little bit of love? Letter carriers. They are. You know, they always got the door open in that thing. They don't got any AC in those old trucks. Man, it's got to be hot. So thank you for doing that work. Also, Aaron wrote in and said, I was in Seattle and PDX today. The airline ramp workers down there on the hot tarmac. That's exactly right. And I bet you it's even hotter down there with all those big planes and stuff flying around. And they have to wear, I'm pretty sure they have to wear long sleeves, you know, for protective purposes. So I don't think they're out there in tank tops. Can't imagine that work. Thank you. Also, George writing in and saying, what about the Washington fireworks celebration this weekend? People buying fireworks. They went on sale today. We're going to cover that a little bit more tomorrow, but we do know that there was a big push from some of the fire officials up there and some other leaders to try and ban them in certain areas. Clearly, it's not a great idea. I know everybody has their own opinions on how much they enjoy fireworks for their family on the 4th of July, but given the heat and the dry conditions, we've talked about that a lot. But we're going to get into it a little bit more tomorrow. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Use that hashtag, HeyDan. That's a Monday. See you back here tomorrow.